Welcome to Home Tiny Lab. In this series of Home Lab hosting, I have encountered a problem on my XCP-ng virtualization host. That is that I don't have enough local storage. So we will try to solve this problem. So let's go over to the main screen. So if you are if you have already looked at some tutorials of on my channel, I have an old series that speaks about home labbing, more in particular XCP-ng and Xen Orchestra. So here we are already logged in Xen Orchestra, and I will show you what my actual problem is that I want to solve. So when I am going to my host and I go to storage, the local storage on my SSD is almost completely used. So here you see the model of my SSD. It's Crucial, 240 gigs in total. The model is an M500, and the type is LVM, a filing system. Why is this important? I will refer to the documentation. So if you go to the website of and the official documentation of XCP-ng, I will put all the links down in the description. So of the playlist of my channel and of the documentation and other things that I'm going to use. So I am not going to explain everything about storage types in XCP-ng and other kind of storages. That will be part of another video tutorial. So, but if you look in the documentation, so the local filing system that I'm using is local LVM, and it's tick provisioned. So if I define, for example, 20 gig to use as a virtual disk for a virtual machine, the 20 gig will completely be used from my SSD storage. And if I use thin provisioning, it will only use the actual data that is occupied. Even if I provision a 20 gig as virtual disk, if the content is only 3 or 4 gigs, only 3 or 4 gigs will be taken on the disks. So that is one of the important differences. Further on, I will use those commands on my XCP-ng host to find the disk that is already on my system. Okay, so for as information, I'm using only a system with 8 gigs, what's also a problem. That will also be part of another video where I explain how you can manage your memory in XCP-ng. So if we go back to storages, this is what I have for the moment, defined and known by XCP-ng. So in my system that I have repurposed, because for home labbing, I think that you have to try to source the less expensive order that you can find, because it's only for testing and other things. And when you are growing further on, there you can invest in other hardware that suits your needs. So when I go to storage, here you see the storages that are defined. And here is only one local storage, and that is my SSD. So now I'm going to log in my XCP-ng host by a terminal session. So I'm using a Terminator. So I am going to clear this. So I have already tried some instructions so that it's more easy to explain in this tutorial. So one instruction to use is cat of proc and partitions and enter. And here you have a list of the devices that are present in your XCP-ng host. So the SSD is the one that is SDA and is partitioned. And then you have another one and you see that it's about 2 terabytes and SDB. So most commonly a second disk will be known as SDB. But to be sure and to know about which physical disk we are speaking, there is another instruction to execute. And that's ll/dev/disk and by ID. So if here you see, for example, links to SDB and SDA and all the other partitions in the SDA, but we have to go more up, so we can scroll up. I'm using, by the way, Terminator as my terminal. I find it easy to do tutorials with. So, and here you see that SDA corresponds with ATA crucial, what we have seen in Xen Orchestra. And when we go further down, we see SDB, and that corresponds with ATA ST2000, and that's the 2 terabyte disk. That's a mechanical disk. So I highlight this and I will copy this. It will be all clear when I am returning to Xen Orchestra. So let's go back in Xen Orchestra. And now we are going to define our new storage. So a new storage, select host. Okay, it's on my only host that I have in my pool. If you have one host, one pool. Let's give it a name. So local storage HDD. So description. Here I will do, remember the table, I will do I will define a filing system where I can do thin provisioning with, so that in later videos I can show the difference between thin and thick provisioning. Storage description, local HDD with X, select storage type, and here you see you have the X local and you have the LVM local. So my SSD is LVM local, and now I will take from my mechanical hard drive X local. Then the device, and there is the interesting part. So device, disk, and you see I have already tried it, so it's still in my list. So this is the disk ID. And now create. So it's also formatting the disk when you do this this way. If you have already a disk where you have VDIs on or other Xen server files, then you have not to create, but to import the disk. But that's also part of another video. Now I have to solution my local storage problem. Let's go to, so here you see the disk is created with filing system type AXT. If I go to my host, XCP-ng host, and I go to storage, now I will see local storage SSD and local storage HDD. That are names that I have given when I've created the local disk. And here you see details, like I have mentioned before, but here I have also def disk by ID and so on. If you do it this way, you can recognize your disks here in XCP-ng. You could also do, for example, /dev/sdb, and it would also import your disk as local storage. But you would not have this ID, so it would be more difficult further on to know which drive corresponds with what. So I do it this way. Okay. Now to free some disk space, let's go to the VMs, and let's go to all my VMs, also the ones that are not running. So one of the things, if you have disks, if you have virtual machines that you're not using, but all the time, but sometimes, or copying, if you want to create new virtual machines, those are the ideal candidates to move to your other local storage. So if you select it by clicking on your VM, there is a button, migrate. So if you click on this, select the destination host. There is only one host, but I will show the list. Only one host. Select main SR. So this will be your local storage HDD. And you can define it on a VDI case per case. There is only one VDI, so that is the most easy. If you are migrating between machines, this can be very useful. But in my case, it's on the same virtual host, but other storage. So this is enough. So click on OK, and it will start the process. So this is a process that takes some time depending on how big your virtual machine disk is, your VDI. Okay, the migration is done. If I'm going to check on my host and storage, you'll see now that the storage on my SSD is in the green. So that means that I am below 80%. Once you are in 80%, the status is yellow because you have degradation in your in the way the virtualization will work. So machines will slow down and would become unpredictable. If you are going above 90 degrees, there you will have problems with snapshots and other things. You need some free space for managing the mechanisms in XCP-ng. So 75% is still not enough to be for some time at least. So I will move another virtual machine. If you go to local storage, HDD, and you go to disks, so you will see that he has moved snapshots and VDIs. Now normally it would be possible to start up the server. So we are going to check this, going to console, so we know if the virtual machine still works. It's taking some time. Okay. The reason that it takes more time than it ought to take is because of the memory. So if I'm going to my XCP-ng host, you see that all my memory is at the maximum. So to be able to start up the extra VM I've asked, he had to take memory from the other machines. I will explain this in another tutorial. The use of dynamic ranges in memory in XCP-ng in Xen server. So let's go back to virtual machines. Okay, and on this machine, and I'm going to check if it is booted up. Okay, it's booted up. I'm going to force shut down this machine so that I have more memory for the other ones. So if we are going back to our host, so memory will be rearranged and Docker server receives more memory, what it needs to function correctly. Okay. Let's see if we can move another machine. So the Docker machine is not something that is using where I'm running something on, so I can easily move it to the local mechanical hard disk. So let's go to VMs. Let's go to Docker server and click on migrate. And it doesn't let us select a host. What's the reason of this? The reason is the Docker server is still running. So to migrate from one disk to another, you have to stop the server. So that's what we are going to do. Going to advanced and force shutdown. And let's wait until the status becomes red. Here you can see how it progresses. Let's check host. Okay. Let's go back to VMs and select the non-runnings. Okay, Docker server is stopped. Let's select it and go to the migrate button. And now we see that there is a destination. Let's verify this. Okay. And select main, and it's the mechanical disk where we want to move to. Again, you can check if there are multiple VDIs. There is only one, so it's going to the mechanical, and let's click OK. So second VM is now migrated to the mechanical hard disk. Let's look at the status. You can see the status also in tasks. Now you can see the progress and the time it takes for doing it. So estimated time is going down. And it's the time already that is used to migrate. Okay. If we are checking now our memory that is used, because 2 VMs are down. So you see that maximum of memory is still used because of the dynamic ranges that I have set. For example, for my Xen Orchestra appliance that's running on my XCP-ng host, if I go to advanced, you will see let's go down. I'm in my XCP-ng host. That's not there. I'm not going to find this. Let's go to virtual machines. And let's go to the Xen Orchestra appliance and advanced, and let's look for the memory. So here you see static. It's from 512 megabyte to cut to 4 gigabyte, and the dynamic range varies between 3 and 4. So if other virtual machines are launched and there's not enough memory, it will take from the 4 gigabytes that the system can use. Let's go back to tasks to see the progress. Okay, second VM is migrated. Let's check the disk space. So here you see now is 55% is taken off my SSD, so it gives me some room to do new demos directly on my SSD. And there is some storage now taken on my 2 terabyte local spinning disk, 3%. So my local storage problem now is solved, but I have still to boot my Docker server. So let's go to VMs and select none to see the non-running ones. Always a good test, and starting it up. And let's go to console. Okay, it started up the Docker server. So I'm going back to my host, and my 3 machines are running like before. So if you like content like this, don't forget to give a like. It's the most easiest way to show that you like videos like this. Other videos coming up are how to make backups in Xen Orchestra, because before doing such things, you need to have backups. Otherwise, you can lose while you're migrating a machine. You can lose your or corrupt your VDI. It can always go wrong, or even an unscheduled shutdown or a crash, system crash. So it's important to take backups. That's something that I will do in another video that's coming up. And another thing that I will do is try to solve my memory issue, because for the future it will be difficult to make further videos without addressing this problem. I will also make a video about that part of my home labbing. I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.